This is The Fit Mess with Zach and Jeremy.
And we begin this episode very hungry. Hi, I'm Jeremy and he's Zach.
What's up, everyone?
Thanks a lot for listening to this episode of The Fit Mess. Please do subscribe wherever you get your podcast so you never miss an episode. But we're going to be talking this week about intermittent fasting. It's something that I've been doing for a few days. It's something that has tons and tons of benefits that we will get into in just a minute. But I guess we should start with simply answering what intermittent fasting is.
So intermittent fasting is essentially fasting for most of the day and eating all of your food in one window. So say between 4 o'clock in the afternoon and 8 o'clock at night. That's when you eat all of your food. There's various different ways to do it. You can do the 8-16 rule, which is you fast for 16 hours and then you eat during an 8-hour window. Or, if you want to go extreme, you can fast for 3 days or 2 days, whatever you want.
Yeah, and there's tons of options. I've heard of people going every other day, 1 day a week. Like I think I've heard of like fasting Fridays or something where like just you pick one day and you don't eat anything that day. I stick with the 16-8. That seems to work best for me, especially when 8 of those 16 I can be asleep.
And that's a really good strategy. Going to bed hungry, though, is not a recommended course of action. So if you're going to do it, it's always best to eat later in the day, 5, 6, 7 window, and then go to bed while you may have eaten recently. I've done a 3-day fast before. It is super hard to fall asleep when you're super hungry.
I can't imagine 3 after my 8 hours awake, over the course of the 2 periods, before going to bed and getting up in the morning. I'm Mr. Grumpy Pants by the time it's time to break the fast. So it's definitely a big challenge.
The grumpy pants thing, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, but the grumpy pants thing goes away with time.
Yeah.
So why'd you start intermittent fasting?
So I started intermittent fasting this time primarily because I broke my toe. So my physical abilities have been diminished. My doctor was like, you got to just rest. You can't swim. You can't ride your bike. You can't, like, basically all the things I do, even when I'm trying to get out of doing a workout, I can't do them. So I was like, well, I've got to get something diet-wise under control. I've got to get, the food that's going in the shame hole has to get under control in one way or another.
So no 3,000 calorie days for you anymore?
No, I haven't gotten my little 3,000 calorie alert on my watch in a few days. But I do, it's sort of, there's a couple things I always fall back on. One is meditation. One is intermittent fasting. They're 2 really simple things I can do when I need to start something over. It's not a committing to an hour of working out every day. It's not committing to only a specific kind of food or a specific diet, like a keto diet or something, but just going, hey, stop eating at 8 o'clock and don't eat again until noon, dummy. It's a really easy thing to sort of reset. But I always struggle on the weekends because during the week, you're in your routine. Everybody's getting up, they're getting started with school, they're doing their thing. And so it's easy to follow the same pattern. But on the weekends, it's really tough because we tend to sleep in and the kids are like, I want pancakes. And then you make pancakes and you're not going to not eat pancakes because you're not a monster. So,
well, I guess I'm a monster then, because on the weekends I make Natalie pancakes and I just completely skip them most of the time. It's every now and again I succumb to it, but
yeah, it's almost impossible. When I'm sitting there making them, I'm like, well, this is dumb. Now I'm starving and I have this food in front of me. I'm going to eat it. And so
not just food, you have cake,
right?
And maple syrup, like
yes,
duh,
yeah. So then I fall out of the pattern and. I'm like, well, now the weekend's blown, so I'll just eat like garbage for 2 days and start again on Monday. It's this cycle that I fall into. But this time, I went to the doctor on Friday, and that's when she was like, hey, you're broken, you and also your foot, so you should take a break and rest. And so I decided, okay, well then starting today, I'm going to fast because I know I'm not going to be able to do anything. So I got through the whole weekend, and I'm a couple days in now. And so so now there's no stopping me. Once I've gotten it in and I've turned it into a routine, then it's much harder to fall out of it because I'm much more accountable to myself when it's working.
Yep.
So that's where I'm at right now. I'm a few days in and I'm still struggling around the 15-hour mark. I start getting hungry and I'm doing the bulletproof style fast. So I'm having the fatty coffee to tide me over and get me through because it doesn't spike the blood sugar and send everything off course. So So that's what I've been doing. And I know you have a lot of experience with this too. Have you just been doing this basically every day for years at this point?
Mostly. I think a lot of it at this point now is just, like just today, like I'm not actively trying to fast at all right now, but it's 3:15 in the afternoon here. And I haven't eaten anything today. All I've had is coffee.
Wow.
And I'm not hungry though. Like when I first started intermittent fasting, it was actually pretty painful because I had like those blood sugar rushes, and within 2 to 3 hours, like it was painfully hungry. So it was interesting, but I've been doing it for so long now. And, I didn't just do like intermittent fasting. Like I did a 3-day fast where I didn't eat anything for 3 days.
Jeez. And your family survived?
They did. But that time it was actually really enlightening, and I turned it into a learning opportunity for Natalie, which she was too young, I think, to really grasp it. Cause this was like 5 years ago. But like I went to bed and I was hungry, and then we talked about it, and I was like, hey, listen, I chose to go to bed hungry. Not every person in the world chooses to go to bed hungry.
Yeah.
Sometimes they go to bed hungry just because of situation. So we should always be mindful and be, looking to help out wherever we can. So it was, my first real big fast was eye-opening for me, because that actually turned me into a bit more of a community person and helping the community and making sure that people were eating. When you choose to do it, it's one thing, right? I mean, there are various health benefits, but like when people don't have the choice, it's really sad. And I kind of made it one of my goals to make sure that people weren't in that situation as much as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's true of so much of the stuff that we talk about on the show. And I have to remind myself of that. Like a lot of the problems that I try to solve through the various things that we talk about are because I have the luxury of going, oh, what fancy trick can I throw at this tool? It's not just a matter of, hey, I need to survive today and find food and a place to sleep. So, while I'm very aware of my privilege, it's very easy to forget it when I'm like, oh man, I haven't eaten in 9 hours. I'm getting hungry. So that's a great reminder that there are so many people that don't just have the time to think about, man, how can I improve my performance?
Yeah, exactly. But going back to it, like a lot of where I'm at now is like, I just, over the years, I've gotten so used to intermittent fasting that I actually don't feel hungry, and I don't have those blood sugar drops and spikes as much anymore. I mean, I still get them when I eat a pint of ice cream occasionally,
sure.
But, I simply just don't feel all that hungry. And some of it's laziness too, right? Like if I don't have anything that like a Quest bar or something like that, if I don't have anything quick and easy to grab and I actually have to make food.
Oh yeah. Forget it.
I'm just going to skip it and not eat and be like, I'll just have a glass of water.
Glass of water. That's even more effort than I put in. Usually I'll do the look in the cupboard, nothing easy. Look in the fridge, nothing easy. Out of bars, that's it. I'm out. I'm going to go find something else to do.
I'm done eating. I'm done.
But I fall back on it so much because when I, early on in this sort of wellness journey for me, combining that with eating, a vegetarian style ketogenic diet and working out every day, that's when the weight flew off. I mean, daily I was losing weight and brain fog gone. Like I felt like I functioned better during those, maybe 6 months or whatever it was than I have in my life, because everything was, from a biology standpoint, I guess, was working much more the way that it's supposed to. Now you're much more the scientist here than I am. So can you explain? Because to me, I always think of it as like if my body's a car and I filled it up with shitty gas, last time, I'm going to run it to the ground until I go back and fill it up with the good stuff. And then I'm going to compare how the car ran. Was there a difference? To me, that's how I think of it. Cause I ain't no scientist or nothing, but I think you probably can better explain how it, or I guess why it's effective.
Well, let's keep going with the car analogy.
Okay.
I mean, really, it's, you put your shitty gas into the car, right? You burn that gas, but that gas is leaving. Like when you're burning that, it's leaving like all this crappy leftover stuff in your body, right? So, ultimately, if you think about it, when you fast, it's like not putting gas in your car, but your car's still running, and it has to keep going. So it's going to churn through any, little bits of gas, usually in the form of fat deposits, but, and it's going to start burning that stuff out. A lot of, the toxicity in our bodies is stored in fat cells. So when you start running those out, or when you start using those fat cells, you get rid of a lot of toxic items in your body, and you'll just feel better generally.
Yeah. Well, and
does that make sense?
Yeah. And from sort of, I don't know that intermittent fasting is necessarily used for weight loss. I know it can be beneficial for weight control, but again, I imagine it as, if you again, using the car analogy, let's say you have a spare gas tank, and that gas tank is the stored fat in your body. Once your main gas tank has run out, your car goes, well, I guess I'll dip into these reserves. Again, that's sort of the analogy for me, is that whatever stored fat you have, your body switches to start burning that. And in my previous experience with it, when I stuck with it for months, I felt like it really trained my body to go, hey, stop burning glucose. That's not what you want. You want to run on this fat stuff, because that's the premium. The glucose is the unleaded. Premium is the fat burning. And so it teaches your car, for lack of a better word, all of a sudden it's car talk. Teaches your car to only run on premium, or to run better when it's on premium.
Yeah, and it allows you to switch back and forth a little bit easier. I mean, your body, it takes time to switch to fat burning. And in the beginning, if you're not used to it, it can take weeks to a month, like for your body to really adjust to burning fat. So, I mean, like, I'm at the point now where I can go back and forth relatively easily, and it doesn't have any impact on me. But, you mentioned intermittent fasting for weight loss or weight maintenance, right? The basic principle there is, if you're intermittent fasting and you're consuming all of your food, in a certain block of time, you don't have time to consume 3,000 calories, right? You can only eat so much in one sitting.
Yeah.
So if you're consuming everything in like a 4 or 5 hour window, you're just naturally going to eat less calories. So even if you are eating the same junk, it's going to be less of it, and the weight will drop.
And the big thing for me is, especially in this quarantine situation where we're just at home all the time, and the stress that goes into that, one of my default behaviors in stressful times is late night eating. Especially like the kids have gone to bed. Now it's 10 o'clock. I'm watching whatever I'm watching on TV. It's, let's get some popcorn. Let's get some sort of a snack. Right. And then inevitably it is something bad for me, because I'm tired. I've given up all willpower. I've used up all the energy I had to say no to things all day long. And so I'll eat just garbage at 10, 11 o'clock at night, maybe later. And then I'll wake up feeling horrible because of this junk that I ate so late. So that's the other sort of primary motivator for me, is I just went, I'm doing that too much. I'm getting into this habit of, it's 10 o'clock, time to eat something. And I just have to switch that off in my mind. And this goes back to the conversation we had with Gary John Bishop the other day. It's about just making a decision and committing to something and saying, I'm just not going to do this anymore, or I'm just going to do this from now on. And that conversation with my doctor on Friday was, okay, that's it. I'm deciding I'm not eating after 8:30 until I'm, able to change my mind, whatever. But this is the life I'm going to live for now, at least until this foot thing gets resolved, and then figure out what to do from there. But that's also a little bit of a game I'm playing with myself, because if I use the healed foot as the benchmark of, just get to there, then I will have established it as a routine. It'll be easier to stick with it because I will have been doing it for a week, 4 weeks, however long this is going to take, rather than just, I'm going to try this today and see how I get through it. And then we'll take tomorrow as another challenge and see how that goes.
Yeah. I mean, you can also replace it with things too, right? One of the things that worked really well for me same thing, right? I loved having, I'd pull out a pint of ice cream at 8:30, 9 o'clock. I go to bed early. Yeah. So that's really late for me. Right. And, when I decided not to do it anymore, it was, what are you going to replace it with? Right. For me, it was like, what am I going to do? So the two things that actually worked well for me is I'm not really a big tea guy, but I would say, you know what, instead of the ice cream, I'm just going to have, make a cup of tea, non-caffeinated, and that's my replacement. And I'm going to have that, and that's going to be okay. But I don't really like tea. So I started replacing it with 20 push-ups.
Oh,
instead.
Interesting.
So whatever I was doing, like if I was watching TV, I had to do 20 push-ups while I was watching TV.
That sounds way less enjoyable.
But it wasn't that bad, right? Because you get it done. It's something, in my mind anyway, it was, okay, I'm replacing this negative thing with another negative thing, but I can bang that out really quick.
Right.
So,
but then you sit on the couch after doing your 20 push-ups in, a minute or whatever. Then
but
what?
in my head, something clicked.
Okay.
I was like, I'm replacing the ice cream with the push-ups. Push-ups are done. I'm good.
That makes sense.
So it's all about the games you play with yourself.
Exactly.
So when you are fasting, your hormone level changes, your insulin sensitivity changes, for the better. And we talked about, the gas leaving, crappy deposits of things. You get cellular repair starts to happen, which is where it does go in and cleans out, some of the garbage that's left behind. Mm-hmm. And it's a really good weight loss tool, but intermittent fasting for men is different than it is for women.
Yeah.
So for men, there's usually no side effects. I mean, obviously, if you're fasting and you get lightheaded, you might have a blood sugar drop, and it is dangerous. Women, on the other hand, can have some reverse impacts, like insulin sensitivity actually doesn't improve and gets worse due to intermittent fasting. So if you're a guy, minimal risk. If you're a female, just be careful with this. Do your research. Talk to your doctor.
Yeah.
So I've talked about it on the show a lot is, my body is generally inflamed in some way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. My wife and I were just talking about how coronavirus quarantine has really not been good for my body. Like I have been hurt in some way, shape, or form the entire time. Broken rib, banged up knee. Now my left foot is doing something weird that I have no idea what's going on, but I can hardly walk. You know all about that.
I was gonna say you're having sympathy pains because I'm in the middle of one of my slipped rib deals where my back's just been killing me for days. Got the busted up foot. My neck's all tight. I'm not to get all geriatric podcast on you or anything, but yeah, I feel like my body is just like shutting down.
Well, we are slightly over the hill. But anyway, so intermittent fasting actually, like on top of the fact that it reduces the number of calories you're eating, for me has been really beneficial in reducing the inflammation in my body. Mm-hmm. So, when I do it, I can tell a huge difference in, joints and muscles and things just not hurting all the time because I generally am living in a world of pain all across my body. But when I'm doing these types of things, fasting or intermittent fasting, on top of eating, clean, healthy, anti-inflammatory meals, the inflammation of my body decreases dramatically.
Mm-hmm. I remember when I was doing it for several months, feeling like the recovery time from whatever I was doing. Like I would wake up feeling fine. I didn't have that, aching legs from leg day or from the massive bike ride I went on. Like I remember feeling like, man, everything is working the way it's supposed to. This is how my body wants to live.
Yeah. It's amazing how much different you feel, and it hits you slowly though. So I don't know about your experience, but mine was when I first started doing this, the benefits were gradual. So it was a little bit every day, a little bit every day, a little bit every day. And once I got to like 45 days or 50 days or whatever it was, I was like, oh, time to take a break. And I, went out and ate garbage for a couple of days. And that was the moment when you go out and eat the garbage and revert back to day zero, mm-hmm. where you notice the difference.
Yep.
So it's, it's actually frustrating when you're doing it, hoping and expecting these dramatic shifts, and you'll get them over a long period of time and you won't notice them until you come off of it, but it's there.
It's funny just hearing you say that reminds me of, like, this is a bit of a tangent, but it's a primary motivator in why I haven't drank. I haven't had alcohol in 3 years or whatever. And so much of it is because I keep thinking I'm gonna have a beer, and that's gonna allow me the permission to have a second, which is gonna allow me the permission to have a third, which is going to allow me to wake up feeling horrible. And so if I can just sort of apply that knowledge to eating like this, or eating in a better way than I have been, then that's when I'm going to have the success is if I can have enough of a negative motivator, enough of a thing that says you're going to pay for this later. Sure. Have a good time now, dummy, but it's going to suck. Then I can change that behavior and ultimately feel better, which is sort of the point of all of this.
Yep, exactly.
All right, well, I'm gonna stick with it and just see how long I can ride this out and try and measure the benefits, see how I feel in the next couple days, couple weeks, and the longer I can stick with this, the better. So if it's something you're interested in, we'd love to hear your experience. If you have questions, always feel free to reach out to us through social media or email. You can always email us info@thefitmess.com. We have a great episode, a great conversation coming up for you next week. We spoke with author Karen McGregor. She is the author of a book called The Tao of Influence. And particularly with this being Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, we're going to be focusing a lot on sort of your psychology, your mental health, your emotional health. And we're going to have great experts on this month talking about all the different ways that you can learn to recognize your emotions, learn to understand them, learn to deal with them, and hopefully, offer some practical advice on how to get through what I know is already a tremendously stressful time for everybody. But now school starting up and this appears to be how things are going to be for a long time. So I think the more attention we can put on just really being open with each other, being vulnerable and really learning from each other, the better we're all going to be in the months and, possibly years ahead.
Yeah.
So that's coming up on the next episode. And we should also mention, you may have noticed this show posted relatively quickly after the last one. We are trying to shift to a weekly posting rather than every other week. So you can look for a brand new episode from us every single week. Again, that posts at thefitmess.com or wherever you get your podcasts. So please do subscribe there. And of course, any ratings or reviews you want to leave on whatever platform you use are always appreciated.
But Jeremy, one thing that I am planning on doing later today when I do break my fast, because I didn't intentionally do it, but I haven't eaten anything in, we're coming up on almost 12 hours. But one thing I am going to have when I do break it is I've got an Athletic Brewing Company IPA in my fridge.
Very nice.
It's my last one.
Oh, is it really already?
Yeah, I gotta go get some more. But I can't say enough good things about these guys. This beer is so delicious. Like, it really does. You mentioned earlier in the show that you're not drinking, but you actually can now. Like, you can have a beer and it's not going to, have that same impact on you.
Yeah. And trust me, when I went to bed last night, I was already planning ahead to getting through this first full day of the new routine, home. Kids are both in school today. Cheryl's home, like beginning her journey on her new job. Like, today is sort of day one and yet another reset. And I went to bed going, tomorrow it ends with an Athletic Brewing Company beer, because I know I'm going to want that, that little bit of comfort and that delicious real beer taste. So looking forward to that in just a few hours.
It's a perfect end to the day.
Yes. And if you would like to get your hands on some, I'm sure it's available at beverage centers near you or through our website, thefitmess.com. Go there. There's a link to them on our website. So thank you again to them for sponsoring us and for making just incredibly delicious beers. But with that, that's the end of this episode of The Fit Mess. Thanks again for listening. We will be back next week at thefitmess.com.
See you next week, everyone.
We know this podcast is amazing and does not seem to lack anything, but we do need a legal disclaimer. Jeremy and Zach are not doctors. They do not play them on the internet, and even if they did play them on the internet, they would be really bad at it. Please consult your physician prior to implementing any changes that you heard on this podcast. The listener assumes that Jeremy and Zach do not know what they are talking about and that you will do your own research on the topics talked about on this podcast.